The question of why a haunting occurs has puzzled and fascinated generation upon generation. In 1972, ghost hunter John Swinfield was interviewed about his experiences of the paranormal.
There are two objects still left for intensive research: the dark side of the moon and the life beyond life. As we only had a film van and 2 cameras, we chose the second. Light and rain in a house 400 years old promise much in the way of incidental shocks, with perhaps a revelation or two en route. And nothing in this foam-girt, owl-crazed, history-drenched isle is more conducive to thoughts of melancholy and the supernatural than a vast mansion at the sad end of a lane that appears to have been trodden out of primal grass by a party of punch-drunk dinosaurs. Tony Cornell is unpacking the bursting contents of his case to reveal some necessary tricks of his trade to our production assistant.
What do you use the oscilloscope for?
Oh, that's a very useful instrument in many ways. You can take all sorts of recordings with it. You can start getting facts instead of imagination. Somebody thinks they hear a very high-pitched sound, for instance, and it's above the normal range, then you can take it through the microphone and see it actually on the scope.
For we are here to trap, if possible, some sound or echo, shadow or substance of the ghost of Morley Old Hall by Wymondham in the roaring county of Norfolk. We've drawn a series of frustrating blanks in our search for final answers to the straight question: what goes on beyond this place and this time? Certain of our findings have been interesting, tantalizingly close to fact, but not close enough. These we shall remember in the long, unreal hours to be spent within this house. Anthony Cornell, chairman of the Cambridge Psychical Research and Spontaneous Cases Committee, has shown interest in our inquiries and agreed to carry out a detailed, blow-by-blow survey of this particular haunted house, stopping from time to time to consider the facts of our earlier research. Now, hard on the heels of the clock that picks off the minutes that lead to midnight, he's setting off to tour this wide house from the wing to the center, from cellar to roof, to find any evidence of the supernatural in this strange place that can number Saxon ramparts and a medieval moat amongst its older associations. And while Tony Cornell pursues his lonely investigation, we sit and smoke, think about the days past, and of the places we visited to discover light, to illuminate the unknown. In a country rich in every sort of spook tale and devilry known to man and witch, the search for amply recorded cases of brushes with the unknown seemed too easy by half. But to sift the good from the bad, the valid from the hoodwink, proved most difficult. We eventually chose to re-examine first the strange story of the ghost of Mannington Hall. The testimony of Dr. Augustus Jessup, antiquary, given while of sound mind and body. On the 10th of October, 1879, I drove to Lord Orford's from Norwich. It was my intention to spend some time at Mannington Hall in examining and making extracts from various scarce works which I had long been seeking for, and which I now learned were in Lord Orford's library. By 11 o'clock, my host and the other guests had retired to their rooms, so that I was the only person downstairs. Being of a chilly temperament, I sat myself at a corner of the table with the fireplace on my left. Occasionally I rose, knocked the fire together, and stood up to warm my feet. In this manner I went on until nearly 1 o'clock, when I congratulated myself upon the rapid progress I'd made with my task, and that after all I should get to bed by 2. I refreshed myself with some seltzer water and then reseated myself by the table. I had been engaged upon the last book for about half an hour, and was just beginning to think that my work was drawing to a close when I saw a large white hand close to me on the table. There sat a figure of a somewhat large man with his back to the fire, bending slightly over the table and apparently examining the pile of books I had been engaged upon. I stretched my left hand to the pile of books, my arm passed in front of the figure, and it vanished. I was simply disappointed and nothing more. I went on with my writing as if nothing had happened, perhaps for another 5 minutes, and had actually got to the last few words of what I had determined to extract, when the figure appeared again, exactly in the same place and attitude as before. Then first there stole upon me a dread and the suspicion that I was beginning to lose my nerve. And that's the strange but well-authenticated tale of Dr. Augustus Jessup. Was it fact or hallucination? I spoke to Mr. Simon Carter, who's lived in the house for many years. Mr. Carter, what do you think is the explanation of Dr. Jessup's curious experience here?
Well, Michael, Jessup's theory, I think, is based on what he saw, a portrait he saw in the dining room of a Jesuit priest who was hung, drawn, and quartered in Elizabeth's reign. Jessup had made a historical study of this man and later wrote an article on him. And what I think he saw was an association of ideas, produced also, I think, by the atmosphere in which he was working.
Has anybody else seen this particular ghost here?
No, and that's what I think rather confirms my theory on this.
Has there been any other phenomena here?
Certainly, we have a room at the top of the stairs that has a mild form of poltergeist in it. This was exorcised, I believe, in 1912 and walled up for about 50 years. There's a current of wind that rushes around the room, the casement window flies open, the door opens, and the light goes on and off. Apart from that, nothing more alarming than that.
Is there anybody you know who's had odd experiences here?
Well, my wife has experienced just what I've described, but nobody has seen anything other than Jessup, anything visual in this house. Although we live in hope, I must say.
So much for report and conjecture about the startling yet traditional style ghost of Mannington Hall. One man, one account, one possible phantom. Yet certain areas have accounts more startling and perhaps better documented, where there may be at least a chance of psychical proof or disproof. This photograph, taken 30 years ago, is of a spiritualist who goes by the name of Ruth. The ectoplasm above her contains the face of a man she never knew, though subsequent inquiry revealed this photograph, taken 20 years before that of Ruth and her husband. The man, long since dead, fearing for his son's chances in life, appeared to Ruth with a message for the boy. Ruth delivered the message. The boy was helped greatly. I spoke to her when she was in a trance, possessed, she told me beforehand, by a spirit friend called Stephen, a long-dead priest who would answer all my questions about what they term the other side. When did you first realize it was your duty to come back to Earth to help those on Earth?
When I realized the mistakes I made on Earth. The teachings I had given were not correct, and so I had to find a suitable instrument to come back and try to alter that which I had in my ignorance given forth as truth.
And is this the way in which all spirit people work with those on Earth now? They try to put right things they've done wrong themselves or thought wrong?
Not all. Some have a greater knowledge or gain greater knowledge on our side of life, and they wish to pass that knowledge on to those on Earth, and so they find a suitable instrument whereby they can pass on the knowledge that they have gained in the wider land of spirit. I knew Ruth before she came on Earth, and she was ordained to be my medium when she came into Earth and reached a certain stage of development. I have never spoken through another instrument, only Ruth.
Why is it given only to a few people to have this psychic experience?
You might say, why is it given to only a few artists or singers or musicians? It's the same. It is an inborn gift.
Okay.
So with the words of the mediums in our minds, we attempt at Mannington Hall to reach by orthodox psychic means whatever spirit may still be abroad there. And Tony Cornell takes time off to see that the inverted glass isn't being pushed by any one of the party.
To point out to you an interesting matter, you can tell when people are pushing because if they push, they have to press with their fingers and their knuckles, not the knuckles. This goes white.
Definitely feel some sort of energy there, can't you?
Definitely.
Did you live in this hall at one time? Please answer yes or no.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you live?
Are you here all the time? Still?
Despite the roughness of the surface on which we performed this experiment, some interesting initials were spelt out by the glass. Initials referring to an acquaintance of the owner of Mannington Hall, Mr. Richard Cotterill. But this is too much on the fringe to help with the central ghost of the hall. So we speak to someone who's had what she feels are psychic experiences in this very room.
Miss Pratt, we're very lucky to find you here. How lucky we'll find out shortly, but you don't live in this house, but you have had an experience here that you believe to be supernatural. What is it?
Yes, I stayed here a night about Easter time, and when I was crossing this room, I felt impelled to stop at this window and gaze out. As you see, it's got no glass, it's extremely cold day, but in spite of that, I felt this sort of wonderful, peaceful presence, and I'm usually a very rushed person. I felt myself slowed up, and I felt that it was a lady that was here, probably a very devout sort of lady. I sort of felt that she was probably a Catholic or something because I heard some Catholic prayers, and I wanted to look at the view very much. That was the sort of impression I received.
You felt as though you were living through what she was doing?
Yes, that was it. I took on her mood, so to speak.
Did you get an idea of the period in which she was living, the historical period?
No, I should have said it was a good many 100 years ago.
Did any of your friends have any other experiences in this house apart from yourself?
Yes, the friend I brought with me in the early morning when I'd gone out to get the breakfast and she was lying in bed, she suddenly sat up apparently because she heard heavy breathing and the rustling of something.
Was she frightened?
She was a little, and she strained to hear it, but she couldn't hear it. She sat up, so she lay down again, then it occurred again while she was lying down.
Meanwhile, Anthony Cornell continues his investigation of the hall. This man is an expert, well versed in psychic investigation. If anyone can find traces of supernatural manifestations, he should be able to. Light and darkness. Perhaps this is the answer to many of our questions. Solitude and the dark, working on our imaginations, can play what tricks they will. And whether we truly see an apparition, or merely think we do, becomes immaterial. For this is the true unknown, not the hair-raising, spine-chilling tales of witchcraft, the turnip ghost fantasies and solemnly wrought Gothic mysteries of the past, but man's simple, primeval fear of darkness, and his need to rationalize this now irrational fear by inventing gruesome figures to people it, to body forth his fears that they may be recognized and perhaps accepted. Is the unknown anything but the unknown continent of the mind? As beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, does the supernatural not lie in the imagination of the fearful and dismayed? For science, as we are beginning to discover, can so far only give us the negative answer. The positive remains at large, a gaping question mark.
Well, Tony, it's now, what, 20 to 4. We've been here since about 10 o'clock. We saw you setting up. We saw you make a minute examination of the whole house. We've seen your various traps and things. We've heard what various inmates have had to say about the house. What do you think?
Well, quite honestly, I don't think it's haunted. There isn't sufficient evidence, I should say, at this stage to suggest that this house is haunted. Although 1, 2, 3 people have felt things, and there have been reports of the lady having been seen standing here, I don't quite honestly think the evidence is enough to say that this place is haunted. Today we're looking for what we call collective sightings of ghosts. And this is not to say that a person's personal experiences of a ghost are invalid, but from the point of view of a high standard of evidence, to make sure that it is haunted or not, we like certainly more than one person, and details, clear details.
Would that rule out the experience of Dr. Jessup in Mannington Hall that we talked about earlier on?
Well, it's a case that goes back, what, 1879? No, I don't think so entirely. He was a well-known figure, and I think his standards of evidence were pretty high. It would be much better if somebody else had seen it as well. This applies to most cases. But the circumstances, his description of his seeing the ghost and experiencing it, are typical of what I should say would be a genuine case. His attention was called from the corner of his eye. The whole thing has a ring of truth about it. But I would like to have seen a record of somebody else seeing it.
And his is certainly the only one, yes.
Yes.
Now, one of the young men who lived many years of his life in the house said that one of the upper rooms was also haunted, in that 2 people he knew well had both experienced changes of temperature and possible poltergeist movement there. Could it be the same ghost of this priest, or is it something entirely different, do you think?
It might be, but there are very few cases where an apparition or a ghost or spectre and a poltergeist phenomena, this business of temperature drop and sheets being ripped off, that kind of thing, is more poltergeist type. These two don't really go together. They may start as a poltergeist case, and people get edgy. These things are thrown about, their movements. And then they experience a subjective phenomena of seeing things. This is, in that order, poltergeist, then ghosts, but not the other way around.